Welcome to my monthly segment on games that time has forgotten. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. This month, I will be taking a look at a gem on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, the Guardian Legend. Let's start. Now, back in the day, many of us would rent out games from the video rental stores. It was also a chance to find a diamond in the rough. We waited the entire week to get to that weekend just to get to that rental store and see what new games we could try out. That was our chance to try out these new games that we might not be able to get our parents to buy for us. Guardian Legend was that game for me. I had seen it in magazines and descriptions on it had me looking forward to playing it. It was that rare occurrence where the game was worth every single penny. The game was released in Japan in February 5th, 1988, and we, in the US, would have to wait a full year before we got a chance to play it. Europe had it worse, as it was released there in 1990. They had to wait almost 2 years, basically. It was developed by Compile. In Japan, it was published by Irem, Broderbund in the US, and Nintendo in Europe. However, even though Compile developed the game, the IP belongs to Irem. The game is sort of a sequel to Gartic on the MSX, yet other than one or two characters making an appearance on Guardian Legend, as well as the music on the password system being similar, there is nothing else story-wise that would connect the two games. In Japan, the game was titled Gartic Gaiden. So when Guardian Legend was released internationally, all three regions had different boxed art covers. Now the Japanese cover here feels dark and gritty while maintaining a sci-fi theme, and was created by renowned artist Naoyuki Kato. The European box covers feels like it was inspired by works from Hajime Sorayama and retains some connection to the actual in-game character. Then there's the US version. While the cover is one of the most iconic NES covers, at least for me, it had the distinction of doing what some other NES covers did for that time, and that was to copy from another art medium, movies. Contra did it, the infamous Metal Gear box cover, and even Mega Man. Nah, I'm just kidding, that cover it sucks. Guardian Legend took the idea of its cover from the 80s horror flick Creature. I actually was not aware of that until I started researching for this video. Interesting, I haven't even seen that movie at all. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad cover at all, but is in no way tied to anything in the game at all. So let's dive into the game. It starts off as a regular overhead shooter, but as soon as you finish the intro level, you find yourself inside some kind of a huge planetary style base. You take control of the Guardian, a female transforming robot of some type that's been sent to stop Naju before it arrives to Earth, and the alien forms inside the planet base engulf our planet. On Japan, your character goes by the name Mira, and even though the graphics are small and hard to see the details on it, you will be correct in assuming that she is wearing a swimsuit style armor with high heels. I'm not going to say anything about that. It soon becomes apparent that there was someone that arrived to this base before you and attempted to engage failsafe devices in order to set off a self-destruct procedure. This individual explains that the base is headed towards Earth and must be stopped before this occurs. After that small explanation from the computer, you set off on exploring a section of the base. You quickly realize that there are symbols scattered about in different portals. Without having that symbol in your inventory, you won't be able to enter these portals. Some of them have no symbol at all, meaning that you can enter these without any restrictions. All portals, though, lead to a room or join together with other rooms that expand to more areas of the map as you progress. Some rooms have entrances to the overhead shooting stages, and some rooms will have a shop, where this blue guy right here from other Compile games will sell you weapons and other items. The manual calls them landers, and they do appear in other Compile games as well. The map layout is very small when you start the game, and it expands as you clear the overhead shooter stages. As new areas open up, you will need to tread carefully as enemies tend to spawn right over you sometimes and quickly deplete your energy. There are a few ways to replenish your energy though, via heart icons, which replenish some energy tanks that refilled your energy completely, and by collecting blue and red chips, but the chips also serve as energy that your weapons use up, and you can use them as currency. Landers seem to like them.
Oh yeah.
You eventually raise your chip total the further you progress and explore the map. Each section has a different look and feel to it, and some enemies different from other areas as well. From time to time you will also hear this alert chime as you walk around the map area, which means a mini-boss appears. You actually want to seek these guys out as they will provide a useful power-up after defeating them. You can upgrade your weapon and your armor at certain points in the game, and it's recommended you seek them out as soon as possible to make your exploration easier. Losing is not the worst part of this game, as it will start you off on the last safe room that you visited. The bad part is having to walk away for a long time. See, back then you had to write down passwords and come back to the game at a later date and inputting these abominations from hell. This game had one of the longer passwords in the NES era. Not the worst, but by no means easy. Nowadays, save states easily bypass this annoying feature, but back then, yeah, many windows were lost. The shooting areas are accessed via rooms like this one right here. Gates sometimes require you to take a specific action in order for them to open. Sometimes you might need a specific weapon. Luckily, lots of clues have been left behind on the computer scattered throughout the base. If one does not open, seek out more information in order to progress. Once you do open up these levels, it becomes an overhead shooter, much like Compil's other games like Sonic or Aleste on the Master System. Biggest difference here is with those games, and this one right here, is power-ups. In this game, there are none. You can use the same weapons you acquire while exploring the overhead map section. Only icons you need to worry about while playing the overhead shooting stages are the red and blue chips, the occasional heart, and most important one of all, the energy tank icon. The pacing of these areas can be slow or fast. Some parts can just overload you with enemies out of nowhere in the blink of an eye, while other areas might seem barren for a few seconds with few enemies scattered about. The biggest gripe I have with these parts, as well as some of the overworld, is that enemies and their ability to drain your health can vary greatly. Some enemies will deplete you rather quickly, while others might offer just slight damage to your character. But you can have full health 1 second and be staring at the screen a second later. I mean, you're just trying to figure out what the hell just happened. The other gripe I have here is that I feel your ship is too big during the shooter stages, and therefore a bigger target. So the chances of you getting hit, unfortunately, are through the roof. Going back to the enemies, they tend to be plentiful in appearance for the most part, but after a bit you're gonna see the same enemies again and again, here or the overworld map. Same for the bosses. Some are just palette swap of other bosses, with slight changes to their attack pattern, and maybe a slight increase in their speed. And they can be difficult. Try to find the best sub-weapon when fighting them to make your life easier, cause yeah, there you go, see what I mean? The weapons available to you are plentiful, but always make sure to keep an eye out on the chip usage, as some weapons will quickly drain your chip count to 0 before you realize it. This also affects your primary weapon, believe it or not. As you progress and your chip count is raised, your weapon reach and overall power increases, allowing it to cover more screen. But if your chip count falls below a certain level, your weapon decreases as well. Very important to remember, especially in the shooting stages, since you don't have a chance to travel to another screen, as in the overworld map, to take a breather and possibly to recharge your health or chip count. Try and fill up on chip count and health before heading into the shooting stages. By the way, for some reason the shooting stages are referred to as dungeons by the game's manual. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. Regardless of that, don't let the inconsistency in the difficulty deter you from trying out this game. This is one of those games that really blew me away when I rented it for the weekend. It was a huge deal back in the day because It did something not many games at that time did properly. It blended a few genres into one coherent gaming experience. It had exploration, some very light RPG elements, shooting action, and shmup style levels with tons of weaponry at your disposal. Now, granted, the game does get a bit repetitive from time to time, sure, but that is why the password system is there. You don't have to play through the game in one sitting. Take a break and come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. And that is what's good about a password system, is that you can pick up where you left off as long as you have the password with you. Because there's nothing worse than saving a game to a battery backup system, returning it to the video store, and then renting it a few days later and realizing that a kid named McPickle had erased your hard-earned progress and then wrote over it with his file that showed him on level 1 of whatever game it was that you rented. Oh man, one day, McPickle, one day.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
It was that reason and the fact that the game was so much fun that you were willing to put up with such a horrible password system. I seriously thought that we would get a sequel on the Super NES or even the Genesis. I was always hoping that would happen. The closest we got to a spiritual successor would be years later on the Game Boy Advance, when Wayward Technologies released Sigma Star Saga in 2005. That game has an overhead style explorational segment as well, combined with side-scrolling shooting stages like Gradius or R-Type. That is another title I recommend trying out if you've never played it. Now, I would love to see an official sequel where it has upgraded graphics and new content added to the storyline. Something maybe along the lines of what .emu did for Dragon's Curse, a recent favorite game of mine. By the way, if you haven't played Dragon's Curse, at least the remake, go ahead and try it out. You will not be disappointed. You know, someone did make a hack called the Guardian Legend Secret Edition. He goes by the name Optimon on the romhacking.net community. He has done some great hacks on NES classic titles, and there is one specifically that I'm going to be reviewing in a future episode. This Guardian Legend hack has new levels on both the overhead world and shooting stages, as well as some new bosses. Definitely a game worth checking out. Hope you all enjoyed this trip down memory lane. That is Guardian Legend, one of my favorite NES games. Keep watching, keep gaming, and as always, take care of yourselves.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.